Chapter 41 Why Not Introduce Su Yi to Me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sister Yao and Sister Jing exchanged confused glances. After a lot of thought, the three of them came to a couple of possible conclusions. Either the person only saw Zhou Jinchuan going in and coming out the next day and jumped to the wrong conclusion, or someone was deliberately stirring things up because they had a grudge against Su Yi. Could it be that violinist from the art troupe? Su Yi considered it. I doubt it. News from the family compound behind us wouldn't travel to the dorms over there that quickly. Besides, the way it was worded, it sounds like the person lives close by and can see our gate from their yard. The three of them immediately stood up on their stools and looked around, their eyes all landed in the same direction. It's Sister Lu. Yeah, it has to be her. She's still salty about what happened before. Who else would bother climbing the wall to spy on you? Su Yi agreed that it seemed highly likely. Seeing that Su Yi's smile had faded, Sister Yao and Sister Jing quickly reassured her, don't sweat it too much. We'll figure out a way to clear this up. We live nearby, so our word carries some weight. Su Yi nodded, grateful. It would be difficult to set the record straight, but she appreciated their willingness to try. When Su Yi got to the cafeteria, Su Shaoqin pulled her aside before she could even catch her breath. Su Yi, are you and Captain Zhou really a thing? Su Yi smiled helplessly and shook her head. What are you thinking? We're together every day. If we were, how could I possibly hide it from you? Really, though. More true than you and Zhang Tianhua being an item. Su Shaoqin smiled sheepishly, then her eyes brightened. Su Yi, my brother's coming back from his mission this weekend, and we're showing a movie in our compound on Sunday. Su Yi was confused. The compound's showing a movie to celebrate your brother's return? Not exactly. I've been talking about my brother so much, I'm sure you're sick of it. This is just the perfect excuse to set you two up. Su Yi waved her hand quickly. Forget it. There are already rumors flying around the compound about me and Captain Zhou. If I go meet your brother, it'll only make things worse. Su Shaoqin grabbed Su Yi's hand and grinned. You're missing the point. The fact that you're the talk of the town is exactly why my brother can shoot his shot. Su Yi. I mean, if you and my brother got together, it would kill the rumors. Su Yi smiled wearily. So, the only way to stop the rumors is to find a boyfriend? She shook her head emphatically. Absolutely not. Seeing that she was so against blind dates, Su Shaoqin decided to play the long game. Okay, fine, we won't make it a formal introduction, but you'll come to the movies with me, right? Su Yi thought about it. The kids have been stuck at home lately and are probably bored. This would be a good chance to take them out, so, she agreed readily. Okay, let's all go to the movies together. As soon as the words left her mouth, Su Shaoqin called out timidly, Captain Zhou, you're here. Su Yi assumed Su Shaoqin was just trying to scare her, but when she looked up, she saw Zhou Jinchuan standing right in front of her. Su Yi was shocked. How much of their conversation had he overheard? And had he heard the rumors going around the compound? Although Su Yi didn't care about the gossip, she was worried that Zhou Jinchuan would go out of his way to avoid being seen with her after hearing it. If he lost his job and his place to live, it would be a disaster. Thinking about it, Su Yi didn't know what to say. The two stood in awkward silence for a moment before Zhou Jinchuan spoke. I have to go out of town for a few days. Thanks for looking after Xiao Wu and Wan Wan. Su Yi breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, okay, you can go without worrying. I'll take good care of Xiao Wu and Wan Wan. Then she asked, when will you be back? Next Monday. Okay, good to get out of town to let the rumors die down. Zhou Jinchuan, he really did have something to do. After talking to Su Yi, Zhou Jinchuan immediately drove off with Xia Xiaojun. Lu Changjing went with them. As soon as the car left the compound, Lu Changjing, who was sitting in the back, leaned forward. Old Zhou, what's the deal? Are you really dating that girl? Would your family even approve? Zhou Jinchuan pursed his lips. Why wouldn't they approve? Lu Changjing's eyes widened. You are dating? Zhou Jinchuan coughed. No, it's just some baseless rumors. How can a battalion commander like you believe gossip? Lu Changjing, feeling accused, snapped, then what was all that about? You scared the crap out of me. Zhou Jinchuan huffed and didn't respond. Lu Changjing went on, but now there's a lot of talk about you too. I think it's better if you each find someone else so that the rumors die down. Zhou Jinchuan gave him a look that was hard to decipher. Lu Changjing grinned. I know, it's tough. How about I introduce that girl to me? You can do the honors. Zhou Jinchuan's face darkened, and he said without turning his head, no. Why not? You two aren't a good fit. How do you know we're not a good fit? I think that girl's alright. She might have a temper, but she's no pushover. She cooks great food, takes care of kids, and she's good looking. Before Lu Changjing could finish, Zhou Jinchuan interrupted impatiently, I just don't think you two are a good match. Xia Xiaojun chuckled to himself. Lu Changjing was stunned for a moment, then got more excited. I was just kidding around. But if you're gonna look down on me like that, I'll try to prove you wrong. Unless you admit that you're interested in her. If that's the case, I'll back off. Zhou Jinchuan pursed his lips, and the word no hovered on his tongue for a moment. But before he could say anything, Xia Xiaojun cut him off. Captain Lu, stop teasing our Captain Zhou. Sure, Captain Zhou and Su Yi aren't officially together yet, but it's only a matter of time. After all, they've already locked lips. Lu Changjing blurted out, what? When did that happen? Come on, old Zhou, you're such a smooth operator. You're taking advantage and then playing coy. You almost got me killed. Zhou Jinchuan was also stunned and turned to Xia Xiaojun. When did this happen? How come I don't know? Xia Xiaojun chuckled. Captain Zhou, don't be embarrassed. Captain Lu's not an outsider. Remember when Su Yi fell into the water? Didn't you jump in to save her and give her mouth to mouth? Lu Changjing, there was a falling in the water incident too. Chapter 42, Movie Watching Incident. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Right after, Xia Xiaojun was practically bursting to tell everyone what happened that day. Captain Zhou and Su Yi are totally meant to be. Commander Lu, just back off. Yeah, seriously, why else would he be so quick to take a stranger into his home? Those two were really laying it on thick, and Zhou Jinchuan couldn't even get a word in. Finally, when they paused for breath, he said, you're blowing this way out of proportion. I didn't give her mouth to mouth. Then how did Su Yi wake up? Zhou Jinchuan hesitated, his face suddenly feeling hot. He cleared his throat and mumbled, she just woke up. Seeing how flustered he was, they were even more convinced he was just too embarrassed to admit it, so one of them said, trying to sound like they believed him, okay, Captain Zhou says nothing happened, so I guess I misremembered. Lu Changjing just waved his hand dismissively. Fine, fine. I'm not good enough for him anyway. I give up. Zhou Jinchuan just stared at them. After that, Su Yi's life became a predictable routine, work and home, work and home. She spent her days in the cafeteria and the rest of her time taking care of the kids. She also made sure to stay away from the service window with the two people at the center of all the gossip suddenly disappearing, and Sister Yao and Sister Jing doing their best to set the record straight. The chatter in the courtyard started to die down. Soon, everyone was more focused on the upcoming weekend movie night. On Sunday, Yi Xiaowu was out on the playground early, saving seats with 3 stools. That evening, after dinner, Su Yi packed a bag of sunflower seeds and candy and headed out with the 2 kids. When they got to the playground, wow, it was already packed. Almost as soon as they arrived, Su Xiaoqin came running over. You made it. Did you save us a spot? Su Yi nodded. They barely had time to say hi when they heard Yi Xiaowu yell. Su Yi hurried over. What's going on? Yi Xiaowu pointed an accusing finger at Xiangxiang and Liang, his face red. I put our stools here to save our places, and now they're gone. They must have taken them. Qiang and Liang heard Yi Xiaowu and started making faces. This playground doesn't belong to you. Does it have your name on it? Naya. They were being real brats, and it was obvious they'd done it on purpose. Sui looked at the two kids, who were clearly enjoying making trouble, and sighed to herself. Xiao Wu, come on, look how sad they are. Their front teeth are all messed up, so they can't even talk right. Let's just let them have the seats. Besides, you two should be careful walking around like that. What if you get hurt even worse? Yi Xiaowu nodded reluctantly. Okay, fine. Let them have them. Who told them to lose their teeth? Yi Nuanyuan grabbed a handful of taffy and sunflower seeds from her pocket. If I break my teeth, will I still be able to eat yummy candy and sunflower seeds? Sui shook her head. You're so sweet. I know you want to share, but I don't think they can eat it right now. Then the three of them turned to find other seats. As soon as Qiang and Liang realized what was happening, they burst into tears. Mommy, I want taffy. I want sunflower seeds. Mommy, I need to get my teeth fixed. I don't want anyone to know. That the two boys were wailing and stomping their feet, making everyone around them laugh. Aunt Lu, who was sitting nearby, couldn't take it anymore and grabbed Sui's arm. Sui gave her a cool look. Aunt Lu, what's with the grabbing? You gonna give me your seat back? Okay, then get up. Aunt Lu quickly let go, then she plastered on a smile and said, Hey, those kids are just being kids. Don't take it to heart, Comrade Su. I didn't know this was your spot. If I had, I wouldn't have sat here. I mean, Comrade Su, your relationship with Commander Zhou is special. If Commander Zhou came back and saw me, he'd be mad. Come on, you guys sit here. Sui smiled faintly, fixing Aunt Lu with a stare. So, she was finally getting smart. The gossip about her and Zhou Jinchuan had finally died down, but now Aunt Lu had to bring it all up again and in front of everyone, no less. She'd obviously planned this. If Sui was too shy to take the seat, or if she took it too eagerly, people would definitely start talking again. She'd never be able to shake off the rumors. Aunt Lu was betting that Sui, being a young woman, wouldn't dare to talk about personal things in public, but Sui wasn't the type to let anyone push her around. Aunt Lu, I thought we were done with this, but since you insist on bringing it up in front of everyone, let me ask you something. How did I offend you? Why have you been spreading rumors about me and Captain Zhou all over the neighborhood? Is it because I caught you taking the kids to bully Xiao Wu and Wan? Or because you got fired from your job and I replaced you? Or maybe because you slandered me in the street and got called out for it? Aunt Lu had finally managed to live down those incidents and get back to normal, only to have Sui drag them all back into the light. Seeing everyone staring at her, she started to shake. She pointed a trembling finger at Sui. You. What about me? Are you going to deny it, Aunt Lu? There are plenty of people here. If we really wanted to find out who started all this, we could. But I'm not sure you'd like the consequences. Aunt Lu trembled, pressing her lips together. Don't try to scare me. I didn't say anything. I just happened to see Captain Zhou coming out of the yard early one morning. The rest is up to everyone's imagination. Sui smiled. So, you admit you're the one who started the rumors? I saw it with my own eyes. I'm telling the truth, Sui scoffed. The truth? The truth is, the kids were scared that day. Captain Zhou was just worried they'd be late, so he bought them breakfast the next morning. And you just happened to see him. You jumped to conclusions without knowing the facts and started spreading rumors. I didn't want to argue with you, but you just keep coming after me. In that case, let's go ask. There's a guard over there in the dorm. If Captain Zhou went to get breakfast that early, they must have seen him at the cafeteria. Let's go ask them now. And with that, Sui grabbed Aunt Lu's arm and started pulling her away. Aunt Lu was already panicking, but seeing Su Yi's determination made her realize she'd made a mistake. She'd been counting on Su Yi to just let it go, but now, if they went to find witnesses, she'd be in even bigger trouble. "Comrade Su, good girl, I was wrong. I'm old, my eyes are bad, I saw it wrong. It was all a misunderstanding," Su Yi snorted. "A misunderstanding? You caused such a fuss. You can't just get away with saying misunderstanding." Aunt Lu's heart skipped a beat. "I'll apologize to you. I'll explain it to everyone," she slapped herself on the cheek and apologized to everyone. "Comrade Su, is that okay?" Just then, someone in the crowd shouted, "Here comes Captain Zhou." Chapter 43. Is this really a blind date? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Captain Zhou's here. The crowd, previously gathered, scattered at the news of Captain Zhou's arrival. Some were skeptical. "Captain Zhou never goes to the movies. What's he doing here?" Su Yi was initially doubtful, but then she saw Zhou Jinchuan heading their way. Wasn't he supposed to be back on Monday? Why now? It was already a struggle to get Aunt Lu to apologize publicly. If he intervenes again, it could lead to more misunderstandings. Zhou Jinchuan stopped momentarily, then walked straight ahead. Xia Xiaojun and Lu Changjing followed close behind. The logistics staff member in charge of the movie screening quickly scrambled to add stools when he saw them. Once they were seated, Zhou Jinchuan turned to Xia Xiaojun. "Find out what's going on." Xia Xiaojun nodded, asked around, and hurried back. "Captain Zhou, Sister Lu brought 2 kids, bullied Su Yi and the others, stole their seats, and spread rumors about you and Su Yi. Luckily, Su Yi called her out publicly and made her apologize." "What do you want to do about it?" Zhou Jinchuan thought for a moment. "Let's hold off on dealing with Sister Lu today. Have her husband come to my office tomorrow. Get them moved to the front row, but don't tell them I'm behind it." Xia Xiaojun readily agreed and ran to Su Yi. "Su Yi, there are still some empty seats up front. Why don't you guys head up there?" Su Yi looked at the 2 kids. "Okay, Xiao Wu and Wan Wan can't see from the back. Let them sit up front." She handed her melon seeds and candies to Xia Xiaojun. "Take the snacks. Don't let Nuanyuan eat too much candy." The 2 children looked at Su Yi. "Aren't you coming, Sister Su?" Su Yi smiled. "Xiao Qin and I will stay back here. I'll meet you after the movie." Seeing this, the 2 kids followed Xia Xiaojun to the front. Su Xiaoqin pulled Su Yi to her seat. "Sit with me. My brother's coming anyway." Su Yi glared at her. "I told you I'm not interested in a blind date." Su Xiaoqin laughed. "It's not a blind date. Just a casual hello." She waved to a soldier nearby. "Hey, over here." The man smiled and walked over to them. "I've been looking all over for you. Didn't realize you were so close." Su Xiaoqin smiled, grabbed Su Yi's arm, and introduced them. "Bro, this is Su Yi, the TV editor I was telling you about. We wouldn't have gotten to stay this time without her. Su Yi, this is my brother, Su Bin." Su Bin glanced at Su Yi, gave an awkward smile, and extended his hand. "Comrade Su, thanks for looking after my sister." Su Yi shook his hand briefly, smiling politely. "Hello, Comrade Su. We're all just helping each other out. It's our duty." Seeing how formal they were being, Su Xiaoqin joked, "You two are being way too polite. Why don't you just call him brother like I do?" Su Yi discreetly pinched Su Xiaoqin, then composed herself. "Let's just watch the movie." "Okay. Bro, sit next to me. We can chat." Su Yi, meanwhile, Xia Xiaojun escorted the 2 kids to the front. Zhou Jinchuan noticed that only the 2 children had come and that Su Yi was not with them. He glanced back and spotted Su Yi in the crowd. Even in the dim light, her presence was undeniable. She was shaking hands with a man next to her, laughing and talking. Was this really a blind date? Zhou Jinchuan looked at Yi Xiaowu. "Why didn't she come?" Yi Xiao Wu quickly explained, Sister Su probably wants to avoid gossip. Avoid gossip? She's trying to avoid being associated with him. Zhou Jinchuan grunted and said nothing. The movie began. It was Su Yi's first time seeing an outdoor film. Although the plot was nothing special, the atmosphere was lively. Laughter frequently erupted from the crowd. Su Yi was captivated. After the movie, she stood up and said goodbye to Su Xiaoqin and her brother. She waited at the edge of the playground to walk home with the two children, but just seconds later, Bai Ruolin and Qin Yunfeng walked by. What a coincidence! Seeing Su Yi alone, Bai Ruolin seized the opportunity to make a jab. I heard someone was trying to climb the ladder, aiming for the top dog, but what happens when they fall off? Su Yi smirked. Were you deaf or blind when Aunt Lu apologized? Bai Ruolin sneered. I'm just saying, don't get any ideas. It's one thing to get hurt, but if you ruin your reputation and get kicked out, you might drag Qin down with you. Su Yi glanced at her. Oh. You? Bai Ruolin couldn't stand her indifferent attitude. Qin, look at her. Qin Yinfeng's eyes had been fixed on Su Yi. He said, Su Yi, don't make a fool of yourself and embarrass the army. Su Yi rolled her eyes. What do you mean by embarrass? Is dating Captain Zhou embarrassing? Is having an ex-fiancé like you more embarrassing? No matter how embarrassing it is, can it be as embarrassing as the two of you hooking up? The two of you were so shameless it ended up on the bulletin board. Nobody can top that. What a disgrace! Su Yi felt a wave of relief after her outburst. Bai Ruolin, lost for words, was enraged. She raised her hand to slap Su Yi. Su Yi anticipated the move and grabbed her wrist, then, she slapped her in the face. Bai Ruolin screamed. Qin, stop her! Qin Yunfeng looked at Su Yi disapprovingly. You're way out of line. Why'd you hit her? Su Yi stared at him incredulously. Are you blind? She swung at me first. I was defending myself. Bai Ruolin, unrelenting, demanded that Qin Yunfeng restrain Su Yi so she could get revenge. Su Yi looked at Qin Yunfeng with cold eyes. If you touch me, I'll take the annulment letter to the higher-ups tomorrow. Qin Yunfeng pursed his lips and froze. Just as Bai Ruolin lunged at Su Yi, someone shouted from the darkness, what's going on here? Chapter 44, Mediation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Ruolin had just raised her hand when someone yelled, startled. She quickly lowered it. Captain Zhou, we weren't doing anything. We were just talking. Su Yi walked right up to Zhou Jinchuan. They ganged up on me in the dark. They were going to beat me up. Bai Ruolin quickly hid her hands behind her back. I didn't hit her. I just wanted to scare her. Besides, she hit me first. My face is still burning. Captain Zhou, people in the compound are already gossiping about you and her. Doesn't it look bad for you to be sticking up for Su Yi like this? Zhou Jinchuan's voice was stern. Are you the one spreading gossip around the compound? No, absolutely not. Bai Ruolin started to explain, but Qin Yunfeng pulled her away. Why'd you do that? Qin Yunfeng dragged her a few steps before stopping. You know you can't win against her, yet you argue with her every time. Bai Ruolin glared at him in disbelief. Whose side are you on, hers or mine? Why are you always helping her instead of me? Do you regret being with me? Qin Yunfeng's eyes darkened. No, don't even think that. Bai Ruolin panicked at his cold tone. Don't think that. Why didn't you stop her when I asked you to? She's the one who hit me, and you didn't say a word. Qin Yunfeng took a deep breath, trying to calm her down. You went looking for trouble, and you started it. Consider that slap a lesson. Don't be so impulsive in the future. Bai Ruolin was speechless. Qin Yunfeng, I hate you. She turned and ran. Meanwhile, Su Yi waited for them, planning to take the kids home. Seeing her holding a stool, Zhou Jinchuan offered, let me carry that for you. Su Yi handed him the stool without hesitating. Zhou Jinchuan smiled. Aren't you supposed to be avoiding scandal right now? Sui rolled her eyes. It's dark, and there's nobody around. You weren't avoiding anything when you were in front of Qin Yinfeng and Bai Ruolin. They don't matter. Not people. Zhou Jinchuan smiled and led them home. As they rounded a corner, they saw Qin Yinfeng and Bai Ruolin in a heated argument. Bai Ruolin stormed off. Sui glanced at Qin Yinfeng, who stood there stunned, and sighed to herself. Qin Yinfeng, go after her. Oh no, are they really going to break up? I have to think of something. Sui walked home in silence. She didn't even notice when Zhou Jinchuan left. The kids thought she was upset about what had happened earlier. Sis Su, don't be sad. If anyone messes with you, Uncle Zhou will protect you. Sui snapped out of it and smiled at them. Okay, I'm not sad. I'm just tired from playing today. Let's get to bed early. Sui tossed and turned all night, unable to come up with a solution. She decided to look for more opportunities to observe their relationship. Zhou Jinchuan acted fast. The moment he got to the office the next day, he started discussing work with Political Commissar Wang. Toward the end of the conversation, Zhou Jinchuan casually dropped a few hints. Political Commissar Wang, didn't you play matchmaker for Deputy Company Commander Qin and Comrade Bai from the arts troupe? Political Commissar Wang was caught off guard and played it safe. Captain Zhou, what are you talking about? I just helped them smooth over some minor disagreements. Why are you bringing this up now? Zhou Jinchuan nodded calmly. It's nothing. I was walking past the playground yesterday, and I stopped to watch the movie. After the show, I saw them arguing. And I've heard they've been seen arguing in the army before. They already had those moral issues and were punished. Things quieted down for a couple of days. If they break up after every little fight, isn't that a bit careless with their personal lives? Political Commissar Wang mulled over Zhou Jinchuan's words. He thought Zhou Jinchuan disliked them and was looking for a reason to criticize them. But was he trying to get them back together? He never expected Zhou Jinchuan to care about something so trivial right after getting back from a business trip. He's a nice guy. Since he was trying to help, Political Commissar Wang was happy to give him some face. He puffed out his chest and assured him, they're both good comrades. If they've decided to date, I trust they won't treat it as a joke. Don't worry, Captain Zhou. I'll find some time to talk to them and do some ideological work. Zhou Jinchuan nodded. Good. Back in his office, Political Commissar Wang immediately called Bai Ruolin in. He gave her a serious talking to. I didn't think you two were a good match to begin with, but now that you're together, there's nothing I can do. But you can't keep arguing every other day. It sets a bad example. This is the army. You have to be careful. Bai Ruolin felt wronged. I don't want to argue with him, but isn't it normal for couples to fight? Political Commissar Wang snorted. You've only been dating for a few months and you're already arguing like this. If you ask me, you should just call it quits if you can't get along. Bai Ruolin refused. She had finally snatched Qin Yinfeng away from Sui, and she'd paid a high price for it. If she gave up now, she'd be the laughingstock of the compound. Political Commissar Wang, I understand. Don't worry, we'll be more careful from now on. Political Commissar Wang nodded. Okay, don't be so petty. I'll talk to Qin Yinfeng too. After Bai Ruolin left, Political Commissar Wang summoned Qin Yinfeng. Qin Yinfeng was a man with no connections. Political Commissar Wang could easily control him, using both gentle and harsh tactics. First, he threatened that if he didn't cherish Bai Ruolin, he would inform the Bai family and they would break up. Then, he warned him not to mess up his career. You just broke off your first engagement, and now you're dating someone for a few months and breaking up again. What will people think of you? Qin Yinfeng knew he was in the wrong. He had thought about this when he went home the night before. He had planned to apologize to Bai Ruolin today. Instead, Bai Ruolin had complained to Political Commissar Wang first thing in the morning. Now he was getting yelled at for no reason. Although he was annoyed with Bai Ruolin, Qin Yinfeng didn't dare say a word. He agreed to everything Political Commissar Wang said. Political Commissar Wang saw that he was being cooperative, so he softened his tone. Comrade Bai is still young and a bit headstrong. As a man, you need to be tolerant. Take her to the movies and buy her things on your days off. Don't all young girls love that stuff? Qin Yinfeng pursed his lips and nodded. I understand. As he walked out of the office, he saw Bai Ruolin waiting for him under a tree. Qin Yinfeng sneered to himself. She was the one who complained. Chapter 45. As long as it's not a quarrel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even though Qin Yinfeng was annoyed by Bai Ruolin's behavior earlier, he had to consider Wang Jingwei's words. His career advancement hinged on a good relationship with Bai Ruolin, so, Qin Yinfeng forced down his irritation and approached Bai Ruolin with a smile. Hey, Ruolin, waiting for me? Bai Ruolin nodded. I just left Political Commissar Wang. Figured you'd be along soon, so I waited here. She bit her lip, looking at Qin Yinfeng. Did Political Commissar Wang, talk to you? Qin Yinfeng nodded smoothly. He laid it all out. Actually, I was thinking about it last night, and I realized I was wrong. As your partner, I should always have your back, no matter what you want to do. Bai Ruolin beamed. Well, I wasn't totally innocent either. I shouldn't have taken it out on you. I won't do that again. Meeting Bai Ruolin's gaze, Qin Yinfeng offered, I'm off this weekend. I'll take leave. We can go into the county. I've been saving up my allowance for a few months, haven't sent it home yet. He added, fall's coming. You should pick up a couple new outfits. Bai Ruolin was thrilled. Ever since Su Yi had cleaned her out, she'd been broke. She'd hardly gone out since. Of course, she was happy that Qin Yinfeng suggested they go. Su Yi was also looking forward to her day off. Ever since she started in the cafeteria, she was stuck making lunch and dinner for Mr. Mo every day. Then she got swamped at the cold dish station. She was pumped to finally have a whole day to herself. She hadn't had a chance to spend a dime of the paychecks she'd gotten the last 2 months, plus the 180 yuan she had saved before. At least, she had a little bit of money besides her work clothes. She only had the 2 outfits she'd bought in town before. Fall was coming, and she needed clothes, shoes, and socks, plus a bunch of little things. The day before her day off, Su Yi caught Zhou Jinchuan when he came by. Captain Zhou, I'm going to the county tomorrow on my day off. Can I ask you to look after Xiaowu and Nuanyuan? Zhou Jinchuan glanced at her. Going to the county? Su Yi nodded. Yeah, rare day off. Thought I'd do some shopping. I was gonna take the kids, but I'm worried we'll run into their biological mom, and that'd be a whole thing. Zhou Jinchuan considered it. Good point. I'll go with you then. Su Yi blinked. He was going too. Seeing her hesitation, Zhou Jinchuan clarified, fall's coming, and Nuanyuan starting nursery school. I need to get her some clothes, a backpack, school supplies, That's great, but I'm afraid people will start talking. Zhou Jinchuan. Xia Xiaojuan's going to the county too. Su Yi perked up. Perfect. Thanks. When Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan heard they were going to the county, they ran around the yard. Finally, it was vacation day. To avoid attracting attention, Su Yi had Xia Xiaojun and Zhou Jinchuan wait outside the gate. She'd meet them with Xiaowu and Nuanyuan. Zhou Jinchuan thought it was unnecessary, but he agreed. He worried they'd get there first, so he and Xia Xiaojun were waiting outside the gate early. While they were waiting in the car, someone knocked on the window. Xia Xiaojun assumed it was the 3 of them, so he got out to open the door. But it was Qin Yinfeng and Bai Ruolin. Bai Ruolin glanced at Zhou Jinchuan in the car and asked, Comrade Xia, what a coincidence. Headed out on a mission? Xia Xiaojun shook his head. Nope. We're off today, going to the county. Bai Ruolin suddenly understood and glanced at Qin Yinfeng. We're catching the bus to the county too. If it's not too much trouble. Xia Xiaojun caught on and waved his hand. Sorry, not really. Bai Ruolin was cut off mid-sentence. She looked a little embarrassed. Is there someone in the back? Qin Yunfeng gently pulled Bai Ruolin back. Forget it, we'll take the bus. Bai Ruolin frowned, thinking of the minibus, and opened her mouth to protest. Then she saw Sui walking over with 2 kids. Sui froze for a second when she saw them but recovered quickly. Were they back together? This seemed like the first time Sui had seen them happy. Helping the kids into the car, she greeted them cheerfully. Out on a date? Bai Ruolin rolled her eyes. So that's who you were waiting for. Comrade Xie, you could have just said there was someone else. We wouldn't have had to ask for so long. She tugged Qin Yunfeng away. Sui was still confused when she got in the car. What's their deal? Did they have another fight? Xia Xiaojun explained, no. She just wanted a ride to the county. I told her it wasn't a good time, but she kept pushing. Good thing you showed up. Sui, as long as they didn't argue, after they settled in, Xia Xiaojun hit the gas and drove toward town. Bai Ruolin coughed from the dust cloud. Those 2 are a piece of work, she muttered. Qin Yunfeng cautioned, don't let it get to you. We finally get a day off to relax. Don't let something stupid ruin it. Bai Ruolin thought of her plans for the day and tamped down her annoyance. You're right. We don't need to let her get to us. But I don't know what she's doing. How does Sui make Captain Zhou pay attention to her? Qin Yunfeng pursed his lips. Does he? Maybe he's just giving her a ride to the county. The kids are there, and Comrade Xie too. Bai Ruolin scoffed internally. Brother Qin, it's easy to not see as a man. Anyway, this Sui is not as simple as you think. Let's wait and see. Qin Yunfeng's heart skipped a beat. Could Captain Zhou really like Sui, a country girl who had nothing? Thinking about it, Qin Yunfeng felt a pang of bitterness. Once, that girl had eyes only for him. Even if the engagement fell through, he would always be in her heart. But since she got here, everything changed. Chapter 46 Your husband has good taste. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Along the way, Yi Xiaowu and Yi Xiaomuan chattered excitedly, gazing out the window. Even Sui, despite being more mature than the kids, couldn't contain her excitement. The bustling streets felt like a country person's first trip to the big city. Funny how things change. Back in a real city, those same streets wouldn't have fazed her. But now, a small county seat that hadn't changed in 80 years had her practically jumping for joy. Xia Xiaojun parked in front of the department store and tossed the keys to Zhou Jinchuan. I'll meet you here this afternoon, Captain Zhou. Zhou Jinchuan grunted in response. Once Xia Xiaojun was gone, Sui asked, surprised, isn't Xia Xiaojun shopping with us? Zhou Jinchuan grunted again, he's got his own thing. Sui, sensing the curtness, dropped it. After all, nobody here knew them. It didn't matter anyway. Feeling like a bird out of a cage, Sui was practically bouncing, wondering where the general store was. Zhou Jinchuan pointed to the 3-story building. This is the county's department store. Best selection around. Go take a look. Sui glanced at the building and immediately checked her pockets. Is this place gonna break the bank? Hope I have enough. Zhou Jinchuan, already heading inside, glanced back at the 3 of them with a small smile. Pick out what you want. I've got it covered. He knew she spent most of her allowance on the kids. Sui, trailing behind Zhou Jinchuan, found herself face to face with him as he turned, out of uniform. Zhou Jinchuan seemed much more relaxed, a faint smile playing on his lips. Oh my gosh, Zhou Jinchuan can actually smile. And get this, he's got dimples when he does. He kinda looks like X-Bing, my celebrity crush. Zhou Jinchuan stopped short, a flicker of embarrassment crossing his face. Then, Brother Bing? Who was that? Could it be the guy who shook her hand after that movie? Did he have dimples too? Sui looked at him, surprised by his sudden pause. Captain Zhou. Something wrong? Zhou Jinchuan gave her a questioning look, then walked inside without a word. Su Yi was dumbfounded. Was he having second thoughts about paying? Well, she wasn't about to let him pay for her. They stepped inside and started on the first floor, buying the kids new sneakers and fall clothes. They even picked out a book bag for Nuanyuan. Yi Xiaowu looked on enviously as Zhou Jinchuan asked the clerk for a blue one and handed it to him. Yi Xiaowu hesitated. For me, too? Zhou Jinchuan smiled. What? Don't you like the color? Yi Xiaowu swallowed. I do, but my book bag isn't worn out yet. Then get this one to replace it. Yi Xiaowu grinned, showing his teeth. Uncle Zhou had given him his old military bag. He'd always treasured it, but these new backpacks, he was beside himself with longing. The thought of walking into school with this new book bag made him stand up straight. Su Yi watched as Zhou Jinchuan bought the kids whatever they wanted. The way he pulled out his wallet made her realize how loaded he was. Even in this tiny town, she felt like she was in some fancy city, watching a big shot blow cash. While they were distracted, Su Yi quietly picked out her own shoes, socks, and underwear. Zhou Jinchuan noticed but didn't say anything until they'd finished on the first floor. Let's check out the second floor. That's where Su Yi realized what was up. The second floor sold women's clothes. Su Yi instinctively balked. I think I'd rather just get the fabric and sew something myself. Zhou Jinchuan replied, just take a look. It won't hurt. The kids chimed in, yeah, Mom, just look. Su Yi nodded. Fine, we'll look. Maybe she'd see a style she could copy. Compared to the hustle and bustle of the first floor, the second floor was nearly empty. They wandered around, and under the kids' prodding, Su Yi tried on a few things, though she was determined not to buy anything. Eventually, the prices didn't seem too bad, so she gritted her teeth and bought a jacket and pant set. Just as she was about to leave, Zhou Jinchuan, who had been quiet all along, pointed to something. That looks nice. Try it on. Su Yi looked. It was a soft pink cashmere cardigan, soft and pretty. Who knew Zhou Jinchuan had an eye for fashion? But the price? Su Yi waved her hand. Nah, that's okay. The saleswoman could tell they were big spenders. She bustled over, eager to help. Your husband's got great taste, ma'am. That cashmere sweater just came in from Shanghai. It gets chilly here in the fall, you can't go wrong buying it now. Su Yi blushed. Oh, we're not married. Zhou Jinchuan just stood there, awkward. The kids snickered. The saleswoman, realizing they weren't married, sized up the kids. They weren't much younger than the woman. She tried again. Just dating. That's okay. Divorced women are all the rage these days, and you need somebody to help with the kids. Su Yi, mortified, grabbed the kids and headed for the door. Zhou Jinchuan cleared his throat and snapped out of it. Go ahead, try it on. The saleswoman already had the sweater off the rack and was handing it to Su Yi. Su Yi sighed inwardly, took the sweater, and headed to the dressing room. As Su Yi was changing, the saleswoman started chatting with Zhou Jinchuan and the kids. You look like a soldier, sir. No wonder such a pretty young woman is with you. Must be tough raising two kids alone. Zhou Jinchuan stood stiffly, occasionally grunting in agreement. He breathed a sigh of relief when Su Yi came out. The light pink cashmere sweater made her face glow and her skin look soft. She wore her hair in a braid over one shoulder, making her look even sweeter. Zhou Jinchuan and the kids stared for a moment. The saleswoman recovered first. That's gorgeous. Looks like it was made for you. You should wear more pink. We have a light yellow one too. Want to try it? Zhou Jinchuan blurted out, sure. Chapter 47 Bai Ruolin suffers blows one after another. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Zhou Jinchuan agree, Su Yi quickly stopped him. Hold on, have you even asked how much it costs? The saleswoman picked up the light yellow sweater and said calmly, 25 each. Su Yi gasped. How much did you say? 25. Wow, that's more than her entire monthly paycheck. Su Yi hurried to take the sweater off. Sorry, it's way too expensive. The saleswoman didn't get upset, she just smiled and said, "You get what you pay for. This cashmere used to be only for export. This is the first year we're allowed to sell it here. And the pink one is the last one we have. Once it's gone, it's gone. Talk it over with your boyfriend, okay?" Sui cringed at her calling Zhou Jinchuan her boyfriend. She just wanted to disappear. She quickly turned back to change. Turning around, she spotted two familiar faces nearby. It was Bai Ruolin and Qin Yunfeng. Bai Ruolin had come to the department store specifically for the cashmere sweaters, hoping Qin Yunfeng would buy her one, but she ran into Sui right away. Running into them was bad enough, but Sui was wearing the sweater she wanted and she looked amazing in it. She glanced over to see Qin Yunfeng staring, completely mesmerized, furious. Bai Ruolin pinched him to snap him out of it. Sui quickly glanced at them and ducked back into the fitting room. When she came out, Zhou Jinchuan was gone, only the two kids were waiting. Bai Ruolin pulled Qin Yunfeng over. "Excuse me, are you going to buy that sweater? If not, we'll take it." Bai Ruolin was sure Sui couldn't afford something that expensive, and since Zhou Jinchuan had taken off after seeing them, he clearly wasn't planning on buying it for her. This was her chance to one-up Sui. Sui didn't care. Anyone who bought such an overpriced sweater was getting ripped off. Figuring the two had finally made up, she didn't want to cause any drama. So, she simply handed the sweater to Bai Ruolin. "I don't want it. It's all yours." Bai Ruolin was taken aback. Why was Sui acting so different today? Was she planning something? Still, at least she had the sweater now. Bai Ruolin happily touched it, but before she could get a good look, the saleswoman snatched it away. "Sorry, this one's already been paid for." Then she smiled at Sui. "I'll wrap it up for you." Sui was confused. When did she pay? Did Zhou Jinchuan slip away to pay? Before she could say anything, Bai Ruolin was already fuming. "Sui, are you playing games with me? You said you didn't want the sweater, but you paid for it." Feeling guilty, Sui quietly pointed to the light yellow one. "How about that color?" Before Bai Ruolin could answer, the saleswoman quickly grabbed the light yellow sweater and wrapped it up too. "This one's yours as well. It's already paid for." Sui was speechless. The saleswoman handed Sui the bags and then turned to Bai Ruolin. "You saw how great it looked on her. Want one too? We still have the light yellow." Bai Ruolin was so mad she could spit fire. "Qin, look, they're ganging up on me. I don't want to wear the same thing as her." Fed up, Sui quickly grabbed the kids and left. Sure enough, Zhou Jinchuan was waiting for them by the stairs. Sui heard the argument behind her and urged, "We bought everything, let's go." Once they were outside, Sui pulled out 50 yuan and handed it to Zhou Jinchuan with a grimace. "Here's your money back." Zhou Jinchuan could see how much it pained her to part with the money. He smiled gently. "No need. Just consider it thanks for watching the kids." No, one thing at a time. Let's go eat. It's going to be crowded, and we'll have to wait in line." He started walking ahead with the kids. Sui had no choice but to follow. When they got to the restaurant, people were already lined up at the counter. Zhou Jinchuan glanced at the empty seats by the window. "Why don't you take Nuanyuan and grab a table? Xiaowu and I will wait in line." "What do you want to eat?" This was Suyi's first time at the restaurant, and she didn't know what to get. Nuanyuan was even more clueless. "You guys pick." "Okay." As they sat down, Yi Nuanyuan kept watching Zhou Jinchuan and Yi Xiaowu. Still embarrassed from earlier, Sui avoided looking around. She just stared out the window. Then she saw Qin Yunfeng and Bai Ruolin again. They were walking with angry expressions, one trailing behind the other. It looked like they hadn't bought anything. Were they here to eat too? Just as she thought that, Sui looked up and saw them coming through the door. Qin Yunfeng got in the back of the line. Bai Ruolin scanned the room, looking for a seat. Then she saw Sui. Without a word, she marched over. "Sui, did you do that on purpose?" Sui blinked. "Would you believe me if I said no?" Bai Ruolin scoffed. Why would you run away if you weren't guilty? Don't think you can boss everyone around just because you're hanging out with Captain Zhou. Do you really think Captain Zhou likes you? He just feels sorry for you. People like you, with no family or money, and only a pretty face, won't be riding high for long, Sui thought. Thanks for complimenting my looks. Seeing that she wasn't getting a rise out of her, Bai Ruolin raised her voice even louder. Big dreams, small life. Just wait and see when he gets tired of you. Bai Ruolin was on a roll when she heard Qin Yunfeng call her name angrily. She turned to see him walking over. Aren't you in line? She stopped when she saw Zhou Jinchuan standing next to Qin Yunfeng. Excuse me. Zhou Jinchuan walked past them and put the food down in front of Sui. He looked annoyed. Why don't you say something when someone's giving you a hard time? Sui was silent. I'm hungry, I don't have the energy to argue. She wants to put on a show, but I don't want to be her sidekick. Zhou Jinchuan smiled, set the food on the table, and motioned for Yi Xiaowu to sit down. You must be hungry after all that walking. Eat up. I'll take you somewhere else after we're done. Ignoring Bai Ruolin completely, Zhou Jinchuan only made her more humiliated. And no one argued with what she just said to them. Seeing everyone staring and whispering about Bai Ruolin, Qin Yunfeng was mortified. He quickly pulled Bai Ruolin away. Chapter 48. A Family of Four. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After they left, the four of them finally had a peaceful meal. Zhou Jinchuan ordered a balanced meal with meat and vegetables, including the kids' favorite sweet and sour pork, but after a couple of bites, they shook their heads. It's not as good as Su Jie's. Zhou Jinchuan chuckled. Eat up. I'll take you to get snacks and popsicles afterward. The popsicle promise brightened their faces, and they started wolfing down their food. After dinner, the kids raced ahead. Zhou Jinchuan and Sui followed, telling them to slow down. Just past an intersection, the children stopped abruptly in front of a photo studio. Peering inside, Sui figured they wanted to take pictures, but when they caught up, Nuan was in tears, and even Xiao Wu's eyes were red. Sui and Zhou Jinchuan exchanged a surprised look before glancing into the studio. There, posing for photos, was the children's mother. She was sitting with her new husband, and a boy about Xiao Wu's age stood behind them. They looked every bit the happy family. It was hard to believe this was the same woman who'd refused to take Xiao Wu home not long ago, yet here she was, cozying up to another kid. Sui was disgusted. She wanted to confront her, but it felt pointless and would only hurt the kids more. Before she could decide, the trio finished their shoot and stepped outside. Zhou Jinchuan moved in front of Sui and the children, shielding them from view. Once they were gone, he said, no need to waste your time on people like that. Let's go. Sui, seeing the children's disappointment, blurted out, I don't think I've ever had my picture taken. How about we take one together? Nuan, being younger, perked up at the idea. She grabbed Sui's hand. I want to take a picture. Xiao Wu, seeing his sister happy, nodded. Me too. Hand in hand, they headed for the studio. Zhou Jinchuan, who had been trying to figure out how to comfort the kids, watched them happily taking photos. He followed them inside. Before the shoot, Sui brought out the new clothes she'd bought and had the kids change. Nuan noticed a wedding dress nearby and tugged on Sui's hand, whispering, where'd they get those dresses? I didn't see them at the department store. Sui smiled. They rent them here at the studio. It's called a wedding dress. Pretty, isn't it? Nuan nodded enthusiastically. So pretty. Can't you rent one and wear it? Sui laughed. Wedding dresses are only for weddings. Seeing Nuan's disappointment, she added, I'll wear one for you when I get married, and we'll take pictures together. Nuan grinned. Promise? After the kids changed, they insisted Sui put on new clothes, too. Sui hesitated. I don't need to. It's still hot. Zhou Jinchuan chimed in for the first time, you should. I'll take the kids over so they can start. Sui gave in. The kids were already taking pictures, and getting ready for a group photo. Seeing Sui in her new clothes, they called out, "Sujia, come join us." Sui hesitated. "You guys go ahead. I'll take pictures later." Yi Xiaowu insisted, "Let's take them together." Sui wondered if it was appropriate for the four of them to pose together before she could say no. Zhou Jinchuan said, "Let's do it together. Save a roll of film." Sui was shocked. Was he serious about saving money? Seeing that the three of them were determined, she finally joined them, sitting next to Zhou Jinchuan. Sui held Muan Muan in her lap, while Xiao Wu stood by Zhou Jinchuan's side. "Son, move closer to Dad. Dad, move closer to Mom. Sis, stop chewing the candy. Okay, that's good." Everyone smiled. Sui was overwhelmed by the sudden family dynamic. Her mind went blank as she wondered how things had escalated to a family portrait. After the shoot, Sui quickly changed and hurried out of the studio, finally feeling cooler. When Zhou Jinchuan came out with the kids and the order form, Sui grabbed them. "You guys take the kids to get popsicles. I'll take this back to the car. Xia Xiaojuan's probably waiting." Seeing she looked uncomfortable, Zhou Jinchuan handed her the keys. "Okay, you go ahead and wait for us." Sui was relieved, and quickly took the keys and left. When she got to the car, Xia Xiaojun waved. "Sujia, why are you back already? Where are Captain Zhou and the kids?" Sui quickly explained they were getting popsicles. Xia Xiaojun said, "Sujia, why are you so flushed and sweaty?" Sui wiped her face. "Am I? Guess it's from carrying things." She quickly got into the car. After a moment, she felt better and asked Xia Xiaojun, "Has Captain Zhou seemed different lately?" Xia Xiaojun was confused. "Different?" Sui paused. "Do you think he's been acting strange?" Xia Xiaojun suddenly understood. "Yeah, he's been different since that movie at the compound. We were supposed to come back on Monday, but we had to come back early on Sunday. I thought something was wrong, but he just wanted to go to the movies." "Is that what you mean?" Sui nodded. "Yeah, anything else?" "Anything else?" Xia Xiaojun thought for a moment and then slapped his leg. "A few days ago, the gossip about you and Captain Zhou got back to the higher-ups. They called him in. He didn't explain anything, just said he'd take care of it." "Maybe it's related," Sui gasped. "Is it that serious?" Xia Xiaojun nodded. "The commander hates gossip, and he thinks highly of Captain Zhou. If it's not handled well, it'll definitely have consequences." Chapter 49. Let's Get Married. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sui had been wondering what was up with Zhou Jinchuan lately, why he was acting so weird. She'd thought the rumors had finally died down, then this happened, and he hadn't said a single word about it to her. Instead, he'd taken them all shopping in town. They weren't keeping their distance. They were closer than ever. How was he going to explain this to his superiors? Lost in thought, Sui barely noticed Zhou Jinchuan returning with the kids. Bursting with excitement, they thrust their new purchases at Sui for inspection, while Zhou Jinchuan handed her a popsicle. "Wasn't sure what flavor you liked, so I got both red bean and green bean." Sui blinked, surprised. "Thanks." Ever since the latest incident, everything Zhou Jinchuan did seemed suspicious. Was he trying to make this a real thing? No way. Sui quickly decided. Zhou Jinchuan was a tough nut to crack. Bai Ruolin had chased him for hundreds of chapters in the book and gotten nowhere. There was no way he would fall for her so fast. Still, this whole situation had made Sui certain of one thing. She was going to talk to Zhou Jinchuan about moving into the dorm when they got back. She'd been debating it anyway, planning to wait until Yinuanyuan started preschool, but now she figured, since she was going to move eventually, she might as well do it sooner. After dropping them off at home, Zhou Jinchuan was about to head back with Xia Xiaojun when Sui stopped him. "Captain Zhou, got a minute? I need to talk to you about something." Zhou Jinchuan was puzzled. Something had been off with her ever since they'd left town. Everything had been fine when they were shopping and taking pictures, then he just stepped away to get Xia Xiaojun, and she'd turned quiet. had Xie Xiaojun said something to her? As Zhou Jinchuan got out of the car, he glanced at Xie Xiaojun, who was pointedly looking the other way. Aha! Su Yi carried the shopping bags inside and told the kids to play outside with some snacks. She poured Zhou Jinchuan a glass of water and sat down. Zhou Jinchuan sat ramrod straight beside her, suddenly nervous at her serious demeanor. Su Yi hesitated, then began. Captain Zhou, Nuanyuan's starting preschool soon. I don't need to stay home to watch her. I think it's best if I move into the dorm now. Zhou Jinchuan was clearly taken aback. You want to move out? Seeing his surprise, Su Yi felt compelled to explain. It's not good for you to live in the dorm all the time. If I move out, you can move back. It'll stop the gossip and keep it from affecting your career. Zhou Jinchuan's eyebrow twitched. Did Xie Xiaojun say something to you? You don't have to listen to him. Su Yi shook her head. I would have had to move out eventually. I didn't have a job or a place to stay before. Now that I can apply for a dorm, it's not good to keep freeloading. Zhou Jinchuan pursed his lips. Xiao Wu and Nuan need you. Su Yi looked up at him. I'll still take care of the kids. They can come to me at the cafeteria after school. And if you're on a business trip, I can still help out. Zhou Jinchuan was silent for a long moment. Do you have to move? It was rare to see him so insistent, and Su Yi grew anxious. If I don't move, do you expect me to stay here forever? Zhou Jinchuan paused, as if bracing himself. It's not impossible. We could get married, so you'd have a reason to be here. Su Yi choked. What? Zhou Jinchuan, thinking she hadn't heard him, elaborated. I'm saying we should get married first, then transfer your household registration here, and adopt Xiaowu and Nuanyuan. Then you can live here without worrying about what anyone thinks. Su Yi thought, it's not that I didn't understand, it's that I can't figure out why Zhou Jinchuan is suddenly talking about marriage. Isn't it supposed to be, like each other, confess, date, then get married? Why is he skipping right to the end? What kind of caveman logic is this? Inside, Su Yi was freaking out, but on the outside, she just stared blankly at Zhou Jinchuan. Zhou Jinchuan was stunned by Su Yi's inner thoughts. If you're getting married, why do you need all the other steps? Besides, the marriage report won't come out for a while, which is enough time for them to get used to each other. They stared at each other. Su Yi cleared her throat and looked down. Captain Zhou, don't joke around. Is this your way of explaining things to your boss? Zhou Jinchuan looked serious. Of course not. Su Yi gave a self-deprecating smile. Then why? Could it be that you actually like me? For the first time, Zhou Jinchuan felt his palms sweat. He grabbed the teacup to hide his nerves. Yes. Su Yi's lips twitched. I don't agree. The teacup rattled in Zhou Jinchuan's hand, splashing water. Why? I feel like we don't even know each other. I know nothing about you, and you don't know who I really am. Even if there's a temporary attraction, it's just a fleeting thing. Am I supposed to gamble my whole life on a momentary impulse? It's too irresponsible. Zhou Jinchuan's heart ached. He wanted to say, I know you better than you think, and don't you know me too? But he couldn't bring himself to say it. After a moment of silence, he asked abruptly, is it because of Su Bin? Su Yi blinked, then remembered Su Xiaoqin's brother. What does Su Bin have to do with this? Zhou Jinchuan studied her face, saw no reaction. He was about to speak when the phone rang. Su Yi stood up to answer it. As soon as she left, Su Yi took a deep breath. This was like a crazy dream. She was staying here just to avoid going back home, to earn some money, and maybe rebuild her confidence, and then wait for Bai Ruolin to be reborn. As for Zhou Jinchuan, she just wanted to help him out, never expecting anything like this. Dating and getting married weren't even on her radar. Sure, her heart had skipped a beat when Zhou Jinchuan proposed, but not enough to throw her whole life off course. Besides, marriage was a lifelong commitment, and she couldn't just jump into it. Zhou Jinchuan must have gotten called back to work, or maybe it was just a delaying tactic. After hanging up, he told Su Yi, "Please think about what I said. Don't rush into an answer." Su Yi didn't want to prolong things. "Captain Zhou, I really can't." She handed him 50 yuan. "This is for the clothes today." Zhou Jinchuan saw the money and understood her resolve. After a long silence, he said, "I'll take the money. And I won't say anything today. Go ahead and apply for the dorm." Chapter 50 Preparing to Move Out. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhou Jinchuan regretted leaving the house, before today, even though he knew he had feelings for Su Yi. Marriage hadn't really crossed his mind, he couldn't explain it, but hearing her say she was moving out triggered something. The idea of marrying her just popped into his head. It was probably from spending the day in town, shopping, eating, and taking photos with her and the kids. Strangers naturally assumed they were a couple. That feeling made him realize, for the first time, how wonderful marriage could be, especially seeing Su Yi and Wan gazing longingly at wedding dresses. His first thought was how beautiful Su Yi would look in one, but he choked down that impulse as soon as it surfaced. His first in 26 years, clearly, he wasn't built for impulsive decisions. When Zhou Jinchuan got back to the office, Xia Xiaojun was already there, leaning against the wall with his head down. "Captain Zhou, did Su Yi say anything to you?" Zhou Jinchuan glanced at him. "What did you say to her?" Xia Xiaojun quickly repeated what he told Su Yi. "I don't think Su Yi's an outsider. She's been worried about you lately, wondering if something's wrong. I just mentioned it." "She didn't say anything, did she?" Zhou Jinchuan scoffed. "She didn't say anything to you. She's just planning to move into the dorms." Xia Xiaojun stammered, "No, but she's doing it so it won't affect you, right?" To shut everyone up, Zhou Jinchuan was silent, then suddenly remembered something. "Hey, Xiao Xia, didn't you tell me your brother and his wife got their marriage license the day they met?" Xia Xiaojun nodded, confused. "Yeah, that's right. They met on a blind date and just clicked, so they grabbed their IDs and got hitched." "Captain Zhou, why are you asking?" "Just curious." "How are they doing now?" Xia Xiaojun looked hesitant. When Zhou Jinchuan kept pressing, he finally answered, reluctantly, "Don't even ask. They fought for 3 days straight after they got married, and now they're getting divorced. Mom was furious last month. She said they were like cats and dogs. If I'd known it would end like this, I would have never encouraged them to rush to the altar." Zhou Jinchuan's expression turned grim. How did it get so bad? If they got along well at first, why the constant fighting and divorce talk? Xia Xiaojun scratched his head. "Like you, I've never been in a relationship, so how would I know? But Mom says my sister-in-law thinks my brother's a boring stick in the mud, doesn't know how to show affection, and has zero romance. Anyway, Mom says I need to really know someone before I marry them, not just get carried away. Don't rush to tie the knot when you are just excited." Zhou Jinchuan looked annoyed. "You never mentioned any of this before." Xia Xiaojun grinned sheepishly. "Family drama. I'm not gonna broadcast that stuff." Zhou Jinchuan. Xia Xiaojun noticed that Captain Zhou didn't yell at him when he came back, and instead was concerned about his family. His heart settled. "Captain Zhou, if you don't need anything else, I'll get back to work." Zhou Jinchuan raised his head. "Go talk to the logistics department. Have them fix up a room in the building nearest the family housing and give it to Su Yi." Xia Xiaojun looked worried. Most of the cafeteria staff live in 4-person rooms. Isn't it a little weird for Su Yi to get her own room? People will talk. Zhou Jinchuan paused. "Tell them to give her my dorm. I'll move back to the family housing. That way, it's not an extra room. Su Yi needs to help take care of Xiao Wu and Wan. Giving her a single room is for the convenience of taking care of the families of the fallen, and that makes it an exception." "Okay." Meanwhile, Su Yi watched Zhou Jinchuan leave. After he was gone, she let out a sigh of relief. but thinking about the deflated look on his face, Sui felt a little uneasy. He had proposed marriage on the spur of the moment. He would probably realize it was a mistake when he calmed down. She hoped she didn't scare him off, right? Besides, she was just as thrown as Zhou Jinchuan. Who could she even talk to about it? Since she'd decided to move to the dorm, Sui told the kids that night. From now on, the three of us will be the same as before, but if I don't come home at night, Captain Zhou will stay at home. Xiao Wu and Muan Muan were sad for a moment, but Sui quickly persuaded them to let it go. Hey, when you apply, can you ask for the single room in our row? It's super close. Muan Muan and I can just go straight to your place after school. Sui looked at the row of houses and was tempted. If she could really live in a single room, it would be a lot easier to do things in the future. Alright, I'll give it a shot. The next day at work, Sui told Su Xiaoqin about applying for a dorm. Su Xiaoqin was thrilled. Awesome. You can stay with me. We've got an empty bed in our room. Sui sheepishly explained that she was hoping for a single room. Su Xiaoqin understood. I'll finish up here, then I'll come with you to ask Master Ma if he can make something happen. Sui nodded. After they'd finished their prep, the two of them went to see Master Ma while the other staff were at lunch. They told him she wanted to apply for a single room. Master Ma didn't dismiss it out of hand. Thing is, there's no precedent for that. I'll have to check with logistics to see if they can approve it under special circumstances. As soon as Master Ma finished, Chef Wang's snide voice cut in. What's all this whispering about? A newbie in the cafeteria wants to live in a single room? Dream on. Su Xiaoqin bristled, ready to argue. We're new, we don't know the rules. What's wrong with asking? Sui tugged Su Xiaoqin back, telling her not to speak. She stood up. Chef Wang, you came at the perfect time. I actually wanted to report something to you. Chef Wang grinned smugly. Let's hear it. Sui curled her lip. So, yesterday was my day off. While Su Xiaoqin and Zhang Tianhua were swamped at the window, someone snuck into the kitchen and tried to steal stuff. They tore everything up. Nothing valuable was taken, just a bowl of cold sauce, but that's still theft, right? Shouldn't we investigate? Chef Wang blinked, looking guilty, and said vaguely, what kind of thief only steals a bowl of sauce? Are you sure you remember correctly? Sui sneered. No way I'm wrong. I was worried they wouldn't have enough, so I made an extra bowl before I left. And it was gone when I got back. Chef Wang frowned. It's just a bowl of sauce. What's the big deal if someone took it?